it was hard to see you like that too. I won't lie. It was just tough times.
You realize that it happened when I started to relax.
You said you did
guard.
say that, right? Like you said, you had the thought that you thought the head of the snake was gone, and then as soon as you started to relax, boom, physical things started coming and manifesting. Yeah.
I've heard over the years that the body keeps score, right?
It does.
And again, I'm going along in my life thinking, dodge that bullet. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm fine. I'm healthy. I'm this. I'm that. No, there's no problem. Until I let my guard down. It's when you're in the middle of stress, is not when you're sick or when you're down and out.
Yeah.
It's when the stress stops.
Thank you for watching this show. We are growing. And if you have gotten anything out of this, if you find it valuable, maybe even you're enjoying it a little bit, would you please hit the subscribe button? It helps us immeasurably. It allows us to go deeper and darker and find more guests and more people that allow us to have these hard conversations, which are clearly challenging us. However, we do understand that it's good for us, and the feedback we're getting allows us to know that it's important for us to keep going. So again, please, if you would support this show, please hit the subscribe button. We'll see you soon. On to the show. Welcome to Bear It All, the Kintsugi Chronicles, here on the I Am Not Okay channel, where we gather our broken pieces in search of gold. My name is John Bear. This is MJ Bear. Holly Bear is with us in spirit. She'll be back ASAP. Today's topic, it is no surprise if you have watched any of these videos that we are in pain. I can speak for myself. I can tell you, I can see how literally I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I see the energy whirring through my body. It's almost as if I don't know where to allow it to go. It's like a dog with the wiggles. I can't shake it out. I'm reactive. And I can see what that does to my mom. I saw what it did to my sister. We've had private conversations about it. And we're doing our best to make sure that these conversations mean something to us and mean something to you. And we're not just sitting here banging our heads on the wall. So, Mom, you said that you wanted to really take a step back today and kind of put the gloves down and really understand and get to the bottom of what you see on tape. So why don't you take it from there? Tell me what you're seeing. Tell me what you're feeling. Let's roll.
Oh, John, I can't tell you everything that I'm seeing or feeling every time I watch these videos. I'm learning more and more about not just how we talk to each other, the entire atmosphere when we're having these conversations. Do you feel it too, that it's almost like an electrical charge?
Yes.
You feel, okay. You said it yourself. This is second only to losing Tony and Jimmy in terms of, damn it, I don't know if I'm going to survive this.
Yeah, this is definitely some of the hardest stuff I've ever done.
It is. I want to say this again. I think I said it in the beginning. Maybe I didn't. John, I'm here. I'm committed to resolving these issues with my children. I'm not looking to be right or to preach or to strong-arm anyone into my way of thinking. From my perspective, what I'm hoping to do is help you and others understand that I don't think it's the issues. I really don't believe it's the issues that separate generations. It's how the generation itself interprets the information.
Okay.
And I'm finding that more and more with you and I which is weird, but I don't have it as much with Holly. Or do I?
Could you clarify what you mean? Like you feel like Holly understands what you're saying, but
Somewhat more, not all the time, but
Yeah.
yes, I think there's more of a different current between us.
AC/DC or
Yeah, let's go with the electricity because that's where we started with this. But
Sure.
that's right. I think our current isn't opposing, where you and I, our currents meet, and it's like you're pushing, I'm pushing.
yeah, it's not a positive and a neutral.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we're learning here. We didn't even know this about ourselves until we've had the opportunity to watch these videos back.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you a question. Do you agree with that?
Do I agree that we have a current that doesn't match?
Yes.
Correct. I do. It's
Do-
like two
do-
positives or two negatives.
Do you feel as if you're learning not only where maybe you could take a step back, but you're learning where, like, Mom, you need to...
So I'll speak for myself. I think it's very easy for people to look at somebody and be like, oh, they could do this better. I think it's a lot harder for them to see themselves do something and be like, oh, I could do this better. And that's, I have been working to watch these videos. When I edit them, it's hard. I can see my limitations. I can see myself struggling. I can see myself reverting back to that kind of like, would you just listen to me? Like kind of stomping around like a little kid. And I can even understand like why that dynamic is. So yeah, I'm watching these and learning and deciphering what I'm actually watching and then questioning like, why am I reacting that way? Why am I speaking that way? Why did that come up versus this come up? And it's helping me understand like my subconscious brain, like what's really underneath everything. Yeah, so that's what I'm learning. What about you?
I'm in the same boat as you, where I'm seeing my mannerisms, my nonverbal cues or clues, where in Tony's video, Holly was saying that she wasn't ready to hear the news about Tony. And if you watch that clip back, she says it, and just a split second later, I'm shaking my head no in agreement. I wasn't ready to hear it. She wasn't ready to hear it. You weren't ready to hear it. And then she said, and John, I think you left the room. And I was looking up in the air, and that came into my brain, and I immediately shook my head no, because I knew you hadn't left the room. These are the nonverbal clues that I'm talking about. Those things, more than the conversation itself, are letting me know whether I'm truly in the conversation or I'm sitting back and allowing a conversation to happen around me. You know how sometimes you and I are talking? And Holly's very quiet because she's taking it in?
Yes.
I think I do the same thing. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think you are correct. After we had, you and Holly had our therapy session recently, Jordan, right after we got off the call, so we had a few minutes, he said to me, he's like, you guys are all so similar and yet very different. He said, do you realize that each one of you has a different strategy when you're faced with conflict? And I was like, no, what do you mean? And he's like, John, you fight. You're a fighter. Your mom, she's flight. She leaves the situation. And Holly, she freezes. And so I can see how you watching yourself in those conversations and seeing like the yes and the no in your head and kind of really reconciling what we're saying with the truth that was going on inside of you by watching it on tape. Like that's like 3D learning kind of almost. Like it's very layered if you will. And so we definitely have a lot of layers. I guess it'd be like volcanic layers or layers of glacial stuff, like prehistoric shit on top of what we're attempting to uncover and unearth. So I that stuff has been eye-opening, to say the least.
I think it's awesome.
It's definitely awesome. It's also, it hurts.
It does hurt.
And like I said earlier, this is short of losing Tony and Jimmy, this is the hardest stuff. I have gone through a state championship winning training camp 3 years in a row when I played football. I have gone through a fraternity hell week when I pledged. I have been through some stuff. Doesn't compare to this. That the feelings after, and I believe that maybe that will tie into what we're going to continue to talk about today, but the physical manifestations of all of this pain. For me, I can see, like, I have been, I'm spitballing here, but most likely so hurt for so long and have not felt heard or acknowledged that I'm always on the edge of my seat, kind of waiting for somebody to see the truth in me as I'm like spitting it out or saying it. And I know part of that is also me understanding why I react the way that I do. And watching myself on tape, and then even after our therapy session with Jordan the other day and Holly, I came home and I was so overwhelmed and overloaded, and Cindy, our other dog, she started like gnawing on one of my shoes, and I just got loud and upset, and it was like this, I looked in her little eyes and she got like that big, like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And I see that look in you and Holly and even in me when I'm watching these videos. And I believe, thinking about this, I think somewhere inside of me is a hurt little boy that never got acknowledged. And when I see somebody with eyes like an infant, like a little dog, or you or Holly who looks scared, it takes me back to being that little boy. But then I believe I hurt or I shit on that little boy because he didn't protect me and he didn't save me when I was a little kid. And I think that's part of I get so on the edge and afraid because that little boy wasn't able to defend me. And so I attempt to push him down and away to get rid of his voice so that the big mean me can be out here and show you. But in reality, it's probably more like a little boy who got hurt so much and wasn't acknowledged, and the reactions are his attempt to be seen. If maybe that makes some kind of sense. That's some deep shit. So that's what I've been thinking about since I've been watching these, and really, why am I doing this? Where is this all coming from? And I'm proud that I was able to say what I just said, and horrified knowing what I had to go through to be able to say it.
I'm sorry for my part in this, John.
Thank you. What are you seeing? What is like the takeaways for you, or what you want to talk about?
Why don't we go into what we were planning on talking about today, which is essentially the physical manifestation of long-term stress on your person. What do you go through when your entire childhood is spent feeling as if you're walking on eggshells?
Great. What are some things that you feel?
What I feel right now is I want to hear what you went through because of the fact that you played football. Mm-hmm. Your body was at peak. Do you believe peak athleticism while you were playing ball?
No, I believe it's at peak athleticism now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Pound for pound, I am as strong and as resilient as I was then. I was just young, and I had a lot of energy, and the hormones were working for me. And I was strong. I wasn't any of those kind of things, but we'll say like pound for pound peak resiliency now is how I feel. But I guess, are you asking me, like, did I feel more pain while I was playing football or less or not at all? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes. First of all, in terms of playing football for the season, were you constantly feeling as if you were in pain or something was inflamed, you needed to tape something here, a special shoe, a special brace?
I honestly didn't really start becoming aware of that extra current of pain until recently. So yeah, I was not aware of it. So I believe when I was playing football was probably like an outlet for me, which allowed me to feel pretty good, which is why I liked it, because all of that current and energy, it wasn't directed inward. Like I wasn't sitting there stewing or wondering, why dad didn't love me or why I couldn't see you. So football was like a distraction for that energy and pain, a different outlet. And when Tony and Jimmy died, instead of all of that energy that was swirling through me, cannibalizing me, that's why I went back to the gym. I think that was such like a natural progression for me, because I had already felt what it felt like when I was 15, 16, 17, 18 playing football with all of that energy running through me. And then at 25, 26, 7, 8 years later, after I lost them, wanting to channel that energy. And I felt strong in the weight room when I was playing football and part of a team, so that's why I started lifting again. But if we peel all or some of the layers back, some of that was physiologically, i.e. like, it's like letting a dog run around so that they get tired so that they can sleep, or letting a kid run around, get their energy out, like go take them to the park, let them play. For me, working out has been the way that I have redirected the current. And what I'm finding is that because I've gotten so proficient at working out and taking care of myself, now I actually have to really deal with the next layer of what's underneath of there. And that I found wasn't something I could do physically. So I was channeling the energy of trauma as a little kid, and as a teenager, simply as a distraction. And now I can't just distract myself with working out, because then what I've started to find out is my workouts suffer. Because I have so much cortisol running through my body all the time, or I can't lift as much, or I don't recover as well, or sometimes my sleep is off. And that's what I have found, where these physical manifestations of pain, I can see it as a gym coach, where a lot of people come to me and they're not as aware of their other stuff as I am. And so they come to the gym because they feel good working out in the gym, but almost inevitably they start coming up against, hey, John, I feel like I'm sleeping well, I'm eating well, and I'm not getting my results. What else is going on? And I was having similar things in my life, so I started like, what else is going on? Well, damn, I can't talk to my mom. We're stressed out all the time. I can't talk to my sister. She has kids, and we've grown apart a little bit, not in a bad way, just in a way that like life took a left turn. And now, then on my own, dealing with this energy, or even with Jackie, but not understanding it, that reaction was starting to hurt my relationship with Jackie. It was definitely causing resentment between me and you, and most likely it was hard for Holly to sit down and listen to me as well. And then any of my friends or the people that hang around me, it's like they can see that I'm a good person and they want the best for me, and also like can feel how overwhelmingly hurt I am. And sometimes I understand they don't want to take that on, and it pushes them away. And so there's a long-winded answer to say, like, you know, football was an outlet and it was a distraction, and I didn't feel the trauma pain. I think I felt better playing football because I was expressing that somehow. And now I have to find a different way to do that.
The reason I asked you that question, I spent most of my life knowing that hormones age the body. That's something, I don't know how long I've known it, but I've known it for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that at times in my life I was under stress, but I didn't feel the physical manifestations of that stress in the moment. I've been going along saying, oh, I got lucky. I dodged that bullet. I don't have as much stress, so my body is fine. Every time I go for a checkup, everything's fine, blah, blah, blah. I thought everything was fine, with the exception I had a heart murmur. I had a heart murmur all my life. Doctors always said, don't worry, you don't worry. So I thought I dodged a bullet there when it came to how stress and long-term stress ages the body. Your body releases all of the hormones all at once, all the time.
Yeah.
When you're in a high-stress situation.
Mm-hmm.
Even when the situation itself in the moment isn't high stress, it could be a low-stress situation, those hormones are still coursing through your body.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought I'm lucky. I didn't have any of those problems. I didn't have back problems. I didn't have this liver. I didn't have kidney problems. And what happened in my case was after Tony died, and when I said I divorced my family, what I mean by that is my family and I had been on the outs, more or less, completely since 1984. The truth is, John, I hadn't spent any time with my family, all of them together, for any length of time since 1983. So when Tony died, I think I said this once to you before, it was as if nothing changed. I could have been gone 1,000 years from that family and been dropped back in the middle of it, and I know what's going on because nothing changed. It was such a weird period of time. I'm grieving Tony's death, but Tony's death is what shocked me into opening my eyes. And I was paying close attention to what was going on within my family because I was there. I was in their faces. Mm-hmm. All of us were there physically with all of them for days and then weeks.
Yeah.
When you came to me, John, and said, I'm not doing this, Mom. They're not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to you, we have to give them a chance.
Mm-hmm.
You were right in that situation. And I'm not saying that today I'm basing that opinion on what happened in 2007, 2008, and 2009. My opinion hasn't changed because the evidence I've seen in these 16 years, when you've told me somebody's contacted you or Holly or I've run into somebody and I do the same thing. I just keep walking like you do. Mm-hmm. It's as if they're strangers. It's not. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but there's no reason. So I just keep going. Mm-hmm. I forget where the hell I was going with that.
Tying it into a physical manifestation of pain somehow?
Yes. I don't know how to explain this. After Tony's death, something in me, it didn't break. It changed immediately.
Shift or something?
An immediate shift. And I knew that I had to walk away. There was nothing there. Remember I said last week, there was nothing there.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How did you know it was time to walk away?
Because nothing had changed, John. And there was no relationship. There was no family. At least for me. There was nothing there.
Was there a change that you were hoping for?
I had just lost Tony. Honestly, I wasn't hoping for anything from him.
There was, okay.
Other than just common courtesy. And that didn't happen either, John.
Okay, all right.
There was no further expectation on my part. I think I had started to really make that that choice more conscious. Like, I have to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's been dragging on now since 1983. We're no closer to an intersection where we can at least meet and say, let's have a cup of coffee and talk.
Sure.
That was never going to happen. Tony's death is what brought me into close proximity with all these people.
Yeah.
As difficult as it was, Tony's death superseded what was going on with these people. But I saw it clearly for what it was, John. And I think you did too.
I don't know how I did. It was a feeling.
Right. It wasn't a conscious thought on anybody's part, but somehow or another, you were able to make that distinction before I did. I was still almost pandering in some cases. And it wasn't because I wanted to be pandering. By that point, I'd rather punch somebody in the throat at that point. I did. That's how I felt, but I didn't punch anybody in the throat.
That's good.
But the tension that I felt, the current and the undercurrent, John, when you walk into a room and everybody wants you dead, you know how that feels.
It's like a pack of hyenas almost. You're like, oh, this is...
You want to back slowly out? That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like in 1984 when my mother threw me out of the house.
Yeah.
So 1984, 2007. And in that period, Laura died.
Yeah.
Laura got ill, Laura died. My parents had the most acrimonious divorce on earth.
Mm-hmm.
The movie, The War of the Roses, my parents were the prototype for that movie.
I never saw that movie, so I don't...
You might want to take a gander at that movie. That's how my parents were when they got divorced. John, it was awful. It was worse than the Hatfields and the McCoys because they were both doing all of these underhanded, sneaky things to each other.
It's like they were trying to hurt each other.
Yeah, oh my God, yes.
Even more. It was like, how dare you leave or whatever.
Can I ask you a question? Do you remember a Sopranos episode where Carmela and Tony were thinking about getting a divorce?
Yeah.
And Tony went around to all the attorneys in the area, right? And he met with them.
Yep.
To consult. Oh, conflict of interest. Sorry, can't represent you.
Correct.
My father did that.
To Mimi?
Yes.
Geez.
Mimi wasn't an innocent lamb either. And I'll tell those stories someday. But the point is, they were horrible to each other, John. And then, as time went on, I'm not in the family. They had ostracized me, so I'm not really in the family. Poppy's talking to me, but I tell him I don't want to know what the hell anybody's doing. I don't care. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me. Mm-hmm. He did anyway, but I kept telling him not to. Where the hell was I going with that? Lost my train of thought again.
Some tie into physical manifestation of pain. What did all of that do to you physically? Like the acrimonious divorce.
It raised the stress level exponentially. When I walked away...
Unconsciously? Like you didn't even know it?
I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
And when I walked away, John, I meant for it to be permanent. And what I did was I took that and I threw it in the back seat and I said, this is not important. What happened with my family, whatever they have to say, whatever they have to do, blah, blah, it's not important. What's important is John, Holly, me. We're important.
Tony.
I put everything
Tony.
else aside, okay? And that was it's what I always do, right? I avoid it. I put it somewhere that I don't have to look at it. I don't have to deal with it because I'm dealing with John and Holly and me trying to get through Tony's death. That's what was important.
Okay.
And what happened was Holly ran into somebody, a family member, who mentioned that Poppy's dementia was really bad.
Poppy, your dad.
My dad.
Gotcha.
My dad. His dementia was really bad.
This was like 2015 or something, 2016?
2011.
Oh, he died in 2015, wasn't it? Okay, okay.
So this is 2011 when Holly came home and told me, and my first thought was the head of the snake can't hurt anyone anymore.
Yeah.
That was what I thought.
That's crazy thought.
The first time that I thought I can
Breathe.
I don't have to look over my shoulder quite as much. So I started to let my guard down.
Yeah.
2012, I started with the abdominal pain the beginning of the year.
That's right. You like walk. Remember when you? It was the Super Bowl in 2012.
Yes.
And I remember my door flinging open at like 5 a.m. in the morning. You were crippled over in pain, and you're like, John, I have to go to the hospital. And all I remember was like, what the okay? And I just like got up, got you to the hospital, took you there, and you had to stay overnight because wasn't it that start of your diverticulitis? You had like an abscess or something.
I thought I had IBS. So
Oh,
2012,
that's what it was. Yeah.
that whole year I was in pain. It was IBS. Sorry, lady, we can't do anything for you, but change your diet, watch the stress levels.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
By 2013, January of 2013, I said, that's it, I can't stand the pain. Went to the hospital. They diagnosed diverticulitis, so it's not IBS, right?
Gotcha.
So I had diverticulitis. It wasn't complicated. If I hadn't had a secondary diagnosis, they wouldn't have admitted me. And the second diagnosis was, we think you have congestive heart failure.
Right.
And we're going to admit you, do a few more tests. Long story short, that was January. By June, I was in the OR having cardiac surgery.
You had a valve replaced, right?
That's right, mitral valve.
Still have the picture.
You know what? I'll bring that someday. You can put it up.
Maybe I'll put it in the video here.
That would be interesting. I'll bring it to you. So that was from January to June. That's how quickly I went from, I have pain in my gut, to laying on a table having open heart surgery.
Yeah. And they did the heart first, they didn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I asked my cardiologist how quickly I needed to have this done, he said, 5 years ago.
And you got a new cardiologist, right?
No, that was Dr. Quinn.
Oh.
Meaning, I really should have had the surgery 5 years previously. That's how crucial it was at that point.
Yeah, that's information that would have been valuable not at that time, like maybe. That's all I'm saying.
Can I ask you something about that surgery?
The surgery? Yeah.
How did you feel? Because we didn't talk about it.
Oh, man. Most likely, like, after Tony died, when you were just like, I got to deal with Holly and John, and we got to just put that behind me and move on. I don't think I took in the depth and the breadth of that situation in the moment. I was just like, okay, this is what we've got to do. Let's get it done and like figure it out. And so, like, I remember that whole year because you had 2 surgeries that year. Was it June and September or something?
Yes, it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Between that time and I believe, if I calculated it properly, and I know I spent some time doing it, literally it was like, get up, go to work, come to the hospital, be with you all day, go home, sleep. So Holly and I both did, it was like we were shift workers at the hospital or not, for 6 weeks. Like you were in the hospital for 6 whole weeks, not
During the
able
year,
to come
right?
home. I think a month for your, or 3 weeks for your, maybe a month for your heart and like 2 weeks for the, something like that. But it was, you weren't able to leave. And so we had to be there. We were all you had. And then like living our lives too. And this might be the first opportunity I'm taking to really take all that in. It was hard. It was tough to see you that way. And I don't think I let my mind go to like, oh, she could die, she could whatever. I think I was already hurting so much. I didn't want to entertain that. But I remember you busting into my room. I remember taking you to the hospital several times. I remember sitting with Dr. Quinn or your cardiologist and talking to him about stuff and figuring things out. I remember them then sitting down and telling you need a pacemaker after all of that down the road. And yeah, Mom, for like a whole year, our lives were stress, hospital, sleep. If I go back and look at pictures of myself from 2012 and 2013, which I have recently because I've been doing all this video work, like my Google Photos and stuff like it's just my library of stuff that I have done over the years. I've kind of like sifted through, like looking for stuff for Tony's video or Jimmy's video, and I see pictures of me from them then. And even though like I was lifting weights and I was doing stuff, I can see like this like gaunt kid that was like just barely hanging on. But in reality, I was dying. That's what I could see. So, God, fuck. It was hard to see you like that too. I won't lie. It was just tough times.
Do you realize that it happened when I started to relax?
You said
down
you
my
did say
guard?
that, right? Like you said, you had the thought that you thought the head of the snake was gone, and then as soon as you started to relax, boom, physical
Right.
things started coming and manifesting. Yeah.
I've heard over the years that the body keeps score, right?
It does.
And again, I'm going along in my life thinking, dodge that bullet. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm fine. I'm healthy. I'm this. I'm that. No, there's no problem. Until I let my guard down. It's when you're in the middle of stress is not when you're sick or when you're down and out.
Yeah.
It's when the stress stops and your body goes back to normal or as close to normal for your body as can be, is when the physical manifestations begin to take hold. It's like a snowball.
Well, a similar analogy is like the workaholic that works all the time and then they go on vacation and they get sick on vacation
That's right.
because they're working so hard all the time, and then like they take a rest and then their body's like, cool, we got you. Let us go ahead and let you know the score that you've been tallying that you weren't aware of. Yeah.
I'm wondering something because of how quickly it went and how far south it went for a little bit. Do you think that caused you to want to be even more physically fit than you were before?
Thank you for making it this far in our show. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that's okay. Just know that you're not alone, that we're here with you, and we're going to work through this together. If you need some help or assistance, dial 988 or head over to our website, www.iamnotok.com, www.iamnotok.com for a space where you can breathe. And if you want to send us an email and let us know how you're doing, we can get back to you as soon as we can and make sure that you're on the right path. Now, back to the show. Remember that thing I said earlier in this podcast where it was like when I was looking at like Cindy or like a little kid or you with the wide eyes and kind of like seeing them as a little kid that was frightened, right? So Hold on. What did you just say? You just asked me something.
I asked you if you thought that the fact that my health fell off a cliff so quickly and went so far south, did that impact you to the point where you wanted to be even more physically fit than you were before?
I believe I wanted to be more physically fit than I was before because I identified as that little vulnerable kid, and I was trying to be strong.
For you?
For me.
Okay.
Not so much to not be sick, but more to be able to defend myself and take care of myself so that nobody could hurt me, which is, it seemed to be the thread of my life. I was in pain and being hurt, and I didn't want to hurt anymore. I wanted to be strong and big and not let things hurt me. So I believe that's probably why I gravitated more towards physical fitness, not necessarily not just to not hurt like you. Is that what you mean? Did I answer your question? Mm-hmm. Kind of? Mm-hmm. All right. That actually wasn't the main thread. Now, part of like maintaining my health and fitness is I think I talked about it on one of the other podcasts. I have people that come in and they see their parents falling apart. I think now that's a big impetus for me. So I think what you're saying, it's more that now than it was like building it and starting. I think I started really getting into physical fitness and health to protect my fragile ego and that fragile little kid inside. And now I keep doing it to protect the fragility of being human, because I know I'm human and I will get older and there will be things that I just can't fight against, you know. Time and gravity usually always win.
Always win.
Well, and so that's the good fight that I'm working against now. And now I'm realizing the physical let's just say in the last week and a half to 2 weeks, since we had our last podcast talk and then we had our therapy session, mm-hmm. Say for the mornings that I had to be in early here, which were a couple, the mornings that I was able, I think I slept like 8.5, 9.5, 10 hours, like 3 or 4 nights in a row.
And that was because of?
The conversation we had, therapy, and how I felt after that. I had to like recover. I have never felt that way after workouts or training camp or any physical thing that I put myself through. Never. So the recovery from talking about all of this and doing it, I believe, I haven't tested my body. I'd love for somebody with like to be able to test my nervous system and see, like, compare, like, what's it like deadlifting 500 pounds versus having a conversation like this? And then what are the effects on my body? Because it feels more devastating, this stuff, than working out.
That would be my opinion too. And man, wouldn't it be interested if there's a way to qualify and quantify that information?
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see what it does.
I told in one of these conversations, it wasn't the last one, maybe it was the one before, mm-hmm. where I said, I went home, I fell asleep at, I don't know, 6 o'clock, and I slept all night long.
Yeah, you slept like 12 hours, right?
I was just paralyzed with exhaustion.
Bingo. That's been most of my life, and I didn't realize it. Running on cortisol, running, and then like those moments of not. And I wasn't saying like I was a sick little kid. I didn't have like lots of sicknesses. I believe my sickness was more like the foods I was reaching for and certain things like that, like comfort, to feel better, to run away from the internal pain. So you stuff yourself, and then at least if even for a little while you're sitting there digesting this big meal that you just ate, then your body is focusing on that big meal and not so much on your shit. So at least it's some kind of weird relaxation. Mm-hmm. And that ties into some Tony Robbins stuff where he's like, you're meeting a need. So people will eat or do drugs or whatever because they're in pain, because they don't want to feel that. So it's like a distraction. So working out for me was like that distraction from the pain. Playing football was a distraction. Then drugs became a distraction. Food when I was a little kid. And even in some ways then being reactive is a distraction, because when I react, I shut down and I'm not actually taking anything in. So yeah, man, unwinding all of that is just, it's a web.
Do you know anyone who's reached that point?
No, I'm searching. I'm desperately searching to talk to people who have been through things like we do and are able to manage it as well or better than we have. I don't even know how to say that. Yeah, I want to talk to, like.
Well, I think we still suck at it at the moment. We're learning.
I think we're not super good at it. I believe that we can definitely have room for improvement.
Yep.
I believe we don't suck at it simply because we're here talking about it. I think sucking at it would have just been like, everything's good and keep going with that string, which we got rid of that. So we're not doing that.
Let me ask you another question.
Please.
From when we began until today.
The podcast?
From when we began the podcast until what we're doing here today, do you feel better than you did at that point?
Oh, yeah.
Emotionally?
Yes.
Do you feel stronger emotionally?
More resilient, yes.
More resilient? Okay. Are we still at the very beginning of this process, in your opinion?
No.
No? Where do you think we are in a timeline?
I think we're kind of at that, where we're kind of the old foundation that our relationship used to lie on, that was crumbled and broken. I believe we're kind of like, this is like sweeping up the last bits of the bricks and the debris and the whatever, so we can start putting down new, healthy, stronger bricks. So we're in the final phases of cleanup. I don't think we're knocking things down. I don't, but maybe you do.
So we're done excavating the rubble.
I think a lot of it was knocked down when Tony and Jimmy and all them died, and we just
left
kind of walked
there?
away from it, like Stonehenge or some shit, just a bunch of stuff like hanging out over there. And now we're kind of coming back to it, Bearhenge or some shit. But like now we're coming back to it and like, oh, look at that prehistoric shit that this fucked up family left like 20 years ago.
Man.
So I think we're coming back to it with fresh eyes now, and the ability to be like, we can rearrange it and or rebuild it.
What does it feel like to unsuck?
What does it feel like? What?
To unsuck.
How do you mean that?
I mean, well, I don't know if we can answer this question if we don't know anybody that's
To suck less?
gotten beyond all of this, not walked over it. I mean, gone through it. You have to go through it.
I don't know that there's many that are or do or have.
That's my point. So people can say to me, I have my shit together. But their actions are telling me, no, you don't.
Yeah.
So you become not a mind reader, but you become much better at deciphering the visual clues around you. And
taking all the information.
Mundane audio cues that usually go over our heads but mean something to the person saying it, and they're saying it in a way to get it out because I can't stand it in my body anymore, in a way, though, that doesn't implicate them in anything, and they can just get their out, right? Mm-hmm. And nobody knows. Do we all do that?
That's what our brain does.
Is just spit it out like popcorn?
If we're feeling pain, our brain will say something to, like your brain, the thoughts that you have, or your body is designed to keep you safe, not happy. So when you say something, it's coming from a place of your brain wants to keep you safe. So if you're not telling the truth, then your body probably feels a threat from whatever the situation is. Thus, what comes out you think is true, but it really isn't. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm learning about the body. So then if you're continuously, if you believe one thing, but your actions are not doing that thing, you have to go inside your brain and say, well, why is my brain or body trying to keep me safe? What is it trying to keep me safe from? So with me and you, I think it's trying to keep me safe from some of the, like, we're having these same conversations and my brain and body is like, dude, you've already gone over this. It hurts. Why are you doing it? You know, like that's, and it's like bang, 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 bang. That just keeps on a fucking loop.
Aren't we doing it on the podcast though for the first time?
So like we're doing a podcast for the first time. We're not talking about these things on camera for the first time. So I believe sometimes I might be reacting to a partial conversation we had before and what we're saying in the here and the now. I have to make sure I'm reacting or responding to what's really being said, not what was said in the moment. Like react and respond to what you just said, not to the thing you said 4 months ago about the same situation that doesn't matter right now. And I believe you and I get in that space sometimes where we'll be saying something, whatever, and we'll remember something from a conversation we had from 4 months ago, and then we bring it up in this current conversation, and we're like, where the hell did that come from? And it's like, at least the last conversation, I saw that a lot between us, and so I want to make sure that we're slowing it down to take it all in.
We can all get our points across.
Yeah, we can.
Somewhat less explosive terms, I think.
Yeah.
So physically, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
You said you didn't feel these things until recently. Are you feeling yourself take longer to recover, for example, than you did 10 years ago? Or is it something specific that is going on where your body isn't reacting the way it would have in your 30s, for example?
I think I'm noticing more physical manifestations of pain now because I'm so in tune with how my body works that I know when it's kind of off kilter, or if I think I'm sleeping right and I think I'm working out right and I'm working properly, but I'm still stressed out, I'm starting to learn where to look and how to understand what else might be causing me distress.
How do you deal with it? How do you address it?
On a case-by-case situation, let's go with because everybody's seen it, like John being snappy and reactive, right? When I get that way, even if I'm sleeping all the time and eating right and working out and like taking my vitamins and stuff, that's a first sign indicator that I am under distress that I am unaware of, and my body is attempting to keep me safe, and I'm lashing out at something. So when I'll be driving in the morning or on the way home and somebody doesn't go away from or they honk at me on the street, or they like stop short or something like that, and I react to that, which I don't always. So most of the time I'm like thinking about what I want to do and I'm like moving forward, but every once in a while I'll be like, what the fuck? Like, just keep driving. Like, and I'm like, now in those moments, then I'll like, the next step is like, hey dude, you gotta shut it down. You gotta like remove yourself a little bit from more situations, spend more cave time, you gotta write something down. Maybe you don't have to work out as much. Maybe it's sleep more. So I address it when I see the sprouting of it. And I'm not like trying to hide my pain or not deal with it. I'm giving it the space inside my body and moving through my life. And when a situation comes up, either that I didn't see, or it's new, or it somehow parallels something that I've been to before, and my body gets this little reactivity in it, I'm just more aware of it. And so for the sleep thing, I'll sleep more. I also noticed, like, I was having more headaches since when we started this podcast too. And that was like I every morning I would either like take a walk or sit down and just do like 10 deep breaths or 3 to 5 minutes of breathing. And I sort of got out of that pattern once we started all of this, and I started having headaches and being more snappy and things like that. And as much as things are exciting and I want to do the podcast and I want to do all these things, sometimes when we get out of our routine of the things that take care of ourselves, then you can start to see the snappiness or the pain or the whatever. So I think, I believe that why I'm so adamant about like personal responsibility and people taking care of themselves is they can mitigate that most of the time. I.e., like, if you are sleeping enough and you're kind of taking care of your emotional health and you're eating, most of the right foods, then you're taking care of your mental health and your gut health and your physical health. And then if there's something going on, then you can really dial in on what that is. So those are the tools that I've used, but I wouldn't have got there if I hadn't started 16 years ago, whatever. So it took some time. How do you manage, deal with, become aware of your physical limitations or pain or whatever? Like, you have your sciatica flared up and started back in like September, and you just told me about it recently.
Funny you say flared up. I never had that before either.
So
that was
so
brand new. And yeah, I started with just a little bit of leg pain, and next thing I knew, my leg was on fire.
Yeah, like you couldn't walk.
I couldn't walk. It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was probably the most constantly painful condition I think I've ever had.
Even more so than the heart or the stomach or any of that?
Oh yeah.
All that was more intermittent?
It wasn't nearly as painful as sciatica.
Wow.
It was brutal. It started in beginning of November,
Mm.
and it wasn't until first week of January I was finally able to say, "Shoo, I think I'm finally over that one." But that will humble your ass very quickly.
What were some of the things that you had to do to manage it or get on with it?
Well, I was physical therapy.
Yeah.
Stretches,
Mm-hmm.
moving around. It's the strangest condition. Your leg is on fire. If you put any weight or pressure on that leg, there's a lightning bolt shooting down your leg, up your leg. I couldn't even tell. It was very painful. But then if you stretch enough and hobble around on that sore leg enough, suddenly the pain disappears. It completely disappears, as if it didn't even happen.
Huh.
You can get on with doing anything you need during the day. It'll come back at some point, but you get that little reprieve, or at least I did, almost every day. But then there were times where the pain, this is one condition where the pain prevented me from sleeping and also woke me up from sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Most conditions I've ever had don't do that.
Mm.
So that's how I judge it as a more painful condition.
Understood. Yep. Couldn't sleep with it.
And again, I never had that before. Do you think talking about these things is part of it?
Yes.
I just realized that right now.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even...
Yeah. I already knew that's why I was having headaches and why I'm sleeping so much. Yeah. This shit is heavy, man.
That didn't even cross my mind. How weird is that?
I'm curious as to why it didn't. Like you just talked about how when the head of the
I
snake
should
was
have.
cut off
Yeah.
and Poppy was not feeling good, that your body relaxed. Well, what did when you came to us and we're like, yeah, we're going to talk about this? Was that like another relaxation somehow in your body? Because you're like, okay, we're finally going to, and then we've been getting into it and it's been hard, and then your body's
You know what?
reacting.
You know what? It might be some of that.
Something like that.
Because I've been contemplating talking about what happened in my family and my life and how I dealt with it and whatever. I've been thinking of doing this since 2015. I created my YouTube channel in 2015.
Okay.
So I wanted to, that was the reason I created it. I really wanted to talk about these things. I had been watching videos for years at that point, reading everything I could possibly read on dysfunctional families, how difficult personalities develop within families, the family roles, the family system. And I knew that my family fit a lot of that criteria. And it was an outlet that I never contemplated existing. You know, when I was going through all of this, there was no access to information, certainly not the way there is today. There was limited access to mental health providers. But even then, a lot of this information wasn't available to the professionals, much less the lay people or the patients.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know what I was dealing with. I was sure I was the problem. You're in your little box in your life, right?
Yeah, it's easy to, if you do all the things and nothing goes away, it must be me, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I always thought it was me. I never knew that there was something else driving how I feel. I was told how I feel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I felt
from people who didn't know how they
right.
felt.
What I actually felt,
Yeah.
I never felt. I still don't know what that means
Yeah.
in its entirety at this point.
So maybe part of the disconnect between me and you, because like remember when you said like John, somehow you knew how to go away from my family before I did, because I felt it in my body. I believe maybe part of my survival strategy was like being connected inside and feeling in here. And some other people's survival strategy, they go up in their head and they think a lot, and so they kind of get disconnected from what they feel. And they don't know how to lean into, and or even that it's a thing that can be telling them something. Like your body's like anxious, or you're short breath or whatever, and that's like the anxiety and your body kicking on the cortisol trying to tell you don't do the thing, and you're like, no, this is just, the way things are. And you try to talk yourself out of it without understanding why you're even having to talk yourself out of something, or because you're not even able to be aware that your body is like revving up in response to something that hasn't happened yet.
So you're saying when your body feels that something else
charge
is going on, yeah.
Yeah. Your body most likely feels it before
And
you're
it's almost
aware.
like a revulsion in your body is saying, nah, I don't want to go near that thing.
Yeah. Yes. I've been near this situation. It didn't go well. I'm contracting your muscles. I'm making your heart rate get shallower. I'm making your blood speed up, your heart pump faster. It's like panic. It's like fight or flight. And that's why I'm like, I'm fight, because I get stuck there, and other people go fight. They fight.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can we agree not to fight? This is an honest question. We're not going to fight. Just want to ask you a question. Do you honestly believe, no, I shouldn't say honestly, do you believe that I should communicate with Brad in any way, shape, or form?
Only if it feels right to you. I'm passing that one right back to you.
Okay, the reason
Are
I
you
ask,
asking, do I want you to, or do I think you should?
those are two separate questions. And you can answer both of them, actually, if you want.
Well, I think you should do what honestly feels right to you and what will allow you to feel safe and heard and seen. And yes, I want you to.
Do you know why you want me to?
Probably for my nervous system to relax. At the very least, for me to see you guys, you say you hate him. He doesn't want to be around you. So like the actions, clearly, I understand that. If even one time, even with a mediator that isn't me or somebody in the room, to have you guys sit down and say whatever you need to say to each other, whether or not it lands, just to get it out, both of you, I'd be curious to hear what that sounds like, knowing I probably won't get what I want, which is for you both to like be able to like come to my wedding and not hate each other, or go to Holly's housewarming party and dad not talk shit, or you walk away from him because he's an idiot. But like on a lot of levels, I can understand your pain and hatred for him. So I cannot be the person that's like, yeah, I think you should. That's not my call. I want you to. Because I believe somewhere down the line, it might give you a modicum of peace, maybe. But if you don't feel that way, don't do it.
Do you mind if I give you my perspective?
Always. Go ahead.
To me, when I walked away from my family, it was a couple years before I walked away from Brad. Do you know why I stopped communicating with him? Do you remember? You might not remember.
No, go ahead, fill me in.
Okay, he came and found you at work, Town and Country.
Oh, jeez. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That was April of 2009. I'm giving you dates here, John, because the conversations I have about some of these things are so far and few between that I remember them verbatim. There's only like a handful of conversations I've had with some of these people in the last 30 years, so I remember these conversations very well.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, he came to Town and Country, right? So that was 2009. And why did he come to Town and Country?
Because I wasn't talking to him.
And what did he want to tell you? Do you remember?
Not specifically.
Surgery? He was having
surgery, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he had to have surgery. So he came to find you at work to tell you he had to have surgery. And you were so upset by what had happened that you called me right away. And I did what I did as your mother. I reacted. I pick up the phone, I call my former husband. Why would you do this to John? If you want to, why don't you just pick up a phone and call him? You have the theatrics? In the middle of that conversation, he hung up on me. And that's when I realized there's no point in talking to Brad. I'm not going to. He doesn't hear my frequency.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now I understand.
I try to hear his.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't, but I do try. But the real reason, the biggest reason, John, for me is this. Would you ask any other person to communicate with their abuser?
Only if I believed it was good for them. Not, I think you should because I think you should.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
No, I would not. So it's very contextual.
I don't want to speak to him. I know you want me to.
Okay.
Maybe it'll change down the line, John. We're just in the beginning of this.
Understood.
So my feelings with regard, I don't hate him, John.
Are you sure?
I despise him, but I don't hate him.
Because I believe if you did actually hate him, it would hurt you more than him.
No, I don't hate him. I despise him for what he's done to our family. Now, you can disagree with me.
I don't.
I have a different history with my former husband than you have with your dad.
Look, as hard as I have clearly been on you during this, if he was sitting here, man, you'd see fireworks, boy. That's all I can tell you. Because as much as you haven't heard me, He doesn't even know who I am. You at least kind of know. So I believe a big part of, like, he's not here for a reason. And he reaches out to me on holidays. Look, part of it is, too, I told him to stay away from me. He has. And I believe if he actually really wanted to, like, talk about things, like, is he supposed to, like, hey, John, we haven't talked in a while. I'm your dad. I love you. We're going to meet for dinner somewhere, and we're going to talk about things. We haven't talked about Tony. Me, you, Holly. We need to sit down and really understand things. No, I haven't gotten any of that. And I don't know if that's in part because when I told him way back when I was hurting and 25 years old and even worse off reactive-wise, to just go fuck off, and he's literally fucking off. Okay, then that is my fault, or I'll own that. But here's what I've learned, that it was like with you, when you came to me and said, I want to start having these conversations, at first I was like, yeah. But then when I stepped back and thought about it, and then when we actually started just doing it and turning the cameras on, even though it's hard, it gives us, it's like a stenographer, like listening to everything that we're saying. You know what I mean? Which is important. So at the very least, I think sometimes with Dad, I believe Holly has this sometimes with him, is he'd say one thing and then say, oh, I didn't say that. And the only reason now that I'm willing to have a conversation with him with somebody else in the room so that there's a record. And if that somebody else is the camera, then at least I can go back and look at it and be like, am I the freaking crazy one here? And so I'd be willing to have that conversation now because I believe I have created safety in order to have that conversation.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
And I don't blame you for wanting to have that conversation with your dad. I hope that at some point you do, because it's important to you. I don't want to have any conversation with my former husband. And as I said, John, my reason, there really is only one reason. He hurt my children. And he did it intentionally.
Okay. Then I support your decision. This will be the last time that I bring it up to ask you to talk to him or suggest maybe that you should. Now it's here on tape. If you ever believe that it's the best thing for you, please. If not, watch mine and his conversation.
Can I ask you a question?
You can.
5 years ago, could you have seen me sitting here with you talking about these things?
5 years ago, 2019. I think we were on the start of it, but no. What was it? Aha! What was the aha that made you come to me back in June last year?
I have been watching a lot of YouTube videos on dysfunctional families. Narcissism is everywhere. You can't escape it. And I started watching videos and reading online because I wanted to understand what the hell I was dealing with here. I knew in part what I was dealing with, but I still didn't have... I only knew what I was dealing with. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with it. Right? Mm-hmm. So I'm still watching videos. I'm watching videos. I'm watching videos. I'm watching videos. I'm watching videos.
When did you start? Back in 2015 doing all that?
No, started before that.
Oh.
See, after my surgery, so it was like 2013.
It's probably when you got like your first iPhone and started like playing around with like apps and things,
been,
because you were laid up and you probably had time to.
You know what? That's right.
Mess around with stuff.
That's
interesting.
Right. And of course, the landscape in YouTube was very different back then. So
totally.
The information about these topics grew exponentially, probably over the past 8, 9 years.
3 to 5.
3 to 5. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've been watching since my surgery and trying to understand where I fit in this weird family, and where I fit in with my husband and my children, and how the hell I got from one point to the other. And I started to learn about the different personalities, the dysfunctional families, the intergenerational episodes that are passed down to the generations. And I realized when I walked away from my family, like I said, I'm no longer part of the family. I'm other. I'm out here. So now I'm looking at this from a completely different perspective. Up until that point, I was part of the family. So I was looking at everything from that perspective, and I'm down here. Remember I said I'm nothing in the family? This is where I belong in my family. And that was my perspective all those years until I said, done. And when I walked away and we started to come out from under losing Tony, what the hell was I talking about? I completely forgot.
Why you decided to do the podcast.
Why I decided to do the... Right, I was under here. I was the bad guy, right? So I walked away, and then I started to read and to watch these videos, and I'm learning, wait a minute, I wasn't the only bad guy in the equation. All of us were the bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
All of us contributed to where we are today. I contributed to my family in one way or another, good, bad, or indifferent. I contributed to my marriage, to my children's lives, good, bad, or indifferent. So my focus went from what these people had done to what am I doing? Why did I do what I did? I don't have very many answers in that arena yet.
That you have that answer, I think, is pretty darn good.
I think, John, in part it's because I'm not sure I want to know.
Oh, interesting.
What if...
Well, that could be your body keeping you safe from the truth.
What if I am that horrible person?
Ooh.
What's the plan B? What do I do?
So you watch Jordan Peterson. We've been into some of his stuff, right? I'll go with the short version here. There's a book out. I'm going to paraphrase a lot of things here, so just bear with me. Jordan talks about this book that was written called The Gulag Archipelago. It's like a 3-part book that was written by a Russian man in the 40s or 50s after World War II about the Nazis who were the concentration camp officers who were taking pregnant women out and shooting them in the back of the head and getting violently ill over it and yet still committing these acts. And what, again, I'm going to paraphrase here and boil this down, but what he's saying basically is don't think that you couldn't be that person shooting somebody in the back of the head if you were pushed far enough. We are all capable of horrendous acts of humanity, pushed far enough. I don't know that that takes away your pain. I believe you to understand humans are capable of being monsters. And I believe admitting that versus saying, like, I hope I'm not that, is at the very least acknowledging your truth or the truth about humans in some way.
John, I grew up in that family. I've always known that I'm capable of being as vicious, as abusive, and as horrible as the family I came from. I know I'm capable of that.
Yeah.
And I've always known that about myself. I'm not completely innocent in all of this. I will say this, I think I've said it before. When it comes to this sustained level of abuse that my husband, my family, and his family participated in over the course of close to 25 years. John, when I tell you, look at me, when I tell you that I have zero trepidation, when I say I am guilty of absolutely nothing that would justify this level of abuse. Nothing. So I'd like to ask you a question. In your opinion, what would someone have to do in order for that abuse to be justified? Is there anything that an individual can do that would justify that abuse?
No.
In your opinion?
No.
That's what this situation is about for me. It's not just, I left my husband, and there's hurt feelings. There's always hurt feelings. There's anger, there's hurt feelings, there's trauma, there's all of it. And you expect that in a situation when a relationship ends, okay? You eventually, however, get through the trauma. You learn to live your life again in a different way. Everybody goes their separate ways. You're not looking over your shoulder for your former spouse around every corner. I felt like that, John. Let me give you an example. Is that okay?
Yes.
Around the time I left Brad, we just probably separated 6 months. Bruce and I were seeing each other. I was still married, but Bruce and I were seeing each other. He stayed at my place because I moved out. Wait a minute. Let me back up 5 seconds. I moved out of my home because I was sick of my husband. I said I'm getting a divorce. Brad refused to move out. I couldn't live with that man, not knowing when he was going to start in on me again. I said, all right, I'll leave the kids here. But I was there day and night, John. The only time you were alone with Brad was when you were sleeping. So I got an apartment. We agreed that when I was in a position to get a bigger place, the kids were coming with me. That was our agreement. The minute I left, he reneged and all hell broke loose, okay? Where the hell's I going with this? What am I talking about? Oh, what Brad was capable of. I'm sorry, I'm such an asshole. Bruce and I were going to work one morning. As soon as we pull out of the parking lot of my apartment, we get pulled over by the police. Bruce is driving, I'm in the passenger seat. He wants to see license and registration. The officer wants to see that. I get the registration, and Bruce has to say to the officer, my license is suspended. I didn't know his license was suspended. That was weird. I don't know why he wouldn't tell me, but I didn't know. He was driving my car. And so the officer said, until you get your license situation straightened out, you drive and everybody's fine. Well, as I was getting out of the car and walking around to get in the driver's side, I look over. Oh, look, that's my husband. In the parking lot across the street, watching everything happen. I'm going to say this again because I don't think you picked up on it. I didn't know Bruce's license was suspended.
Somebody did.
Brad did. More than that, John. You tell me, what police station can you walk in, Mr. Civilian, in this country and say, officer, I know that person is driving without their license, and I'd like you to pull them over on a traffic stop.
None.
Find something to pull them over with. Because at that point, they didn't have any reason to. So you tell me, how would my husband know that Bruce didn't have a license?
And what was the probable cause for him to even pull you over?
There was none.
Like a taillight would have had to have been out or
a
something.
turn signal, you
and
didn't
then you
signal.
would have found, oh, I don't have a license. So
Exactly.
okay.
So the primary reason for being pulled over, let me see your license. My husband's across the street, and he was still my husband at that point. How do you think Brad got that information?
I know. Your father.
Who do you think set up that traffic stop?
It was the next town over because you were in Hatfield, right? And he was in Lansdale?
That is correct.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay? What I just told you about that situation is what I've been dealing with all along. Brad wouldn't come to me and say, hey, I have an issue with this. Let's deal with it. He went to my family. For whatever reason, my family decided to participate with my former husband. Now, the way I see it, my family, Andrea in particular, who had no idea what was going on in my marriage, was perfectly happy to put your lives at risk, perfectly happy to put my life at risk My family had no idea how far my husband would go. I had no idea how far my husband would go. But these people were happy to put our lives at risk because they had an axe to grind. John, this isn't me just talking out my ass. All of this is corroborated.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Some of it by Brad himself. I don't know how much you know of your dad, but when he does something like this, he wants me to know he did it. And if I don't know, he'll tell me.
Okay. Well, then these will be things that I would want to ask him and sit here and be like, does his version of I want to be like, did you have Poppy spy on Mom to pull up Bruce over? You think yes. And if he says no, somebody's not telling the truth.
Exactly.
And Poppy's not here and whatever. So like there could be all of that. But like that, so knowing that, then I like would have reserve to like trust Dad even more. Because then it'd be like, and I could sit here and be like, yeah, you're telling me this story, but like, how should I believe it? I can't not believe it. Like what conveys to me that you're telling the truth? Like, remember how you said to me, like, John, when you get reactive, you take me right back to being with my former husband?
Mm-hmm.
If you were reactive or trying to just like bury him, I would know that. You're not attempting to do that. This is not coming from pain. It's painful to you. It's not coming from a spiteful place towards him. It's coming from a truthful, soft place inside of you that I can feel the vibration of the words that you're saying. They're landing inside of me, and it's not grating against my nervous system, i.e., she's bullshitting you, and I'm just trying to keep you safe. So I'm not having that alarm go off. So as I sit here, I can say I believe what you're saying. And this isn't the first time you've told me that. It's just the first time you've told me that on the podcast. With all the details, now I can sit with it more and really work to understand it. I know that there were times where you were followed by other people in the family and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least you told me that. I would want to sit here with the other party who might have been involved in that and have the same conversation. These are the kind of things that I'm willing to do, to the point of like, are you lying to me? And then if you are, then it's very simple for me to do the Holly. And, yeah, fuck you. Keep it fucking rolling. Throw the two fingers up, right? I wonder if that's where Dad's at, i.e., he knows he's going to have to reconcile this shit and he doesn't want to do it either, which is why he attempts to keep things so light and doesn't want to initiate those tough conversations because he knows his part in them. I don't know.
You've talked to him more in
Not much.
years since I have, right?
Not much.
Not much. Okay, but you have more so than I have. Do you get the feeling he has the capacity to dig that deep?
I'm not sure I can speak to that. Maybe.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't say eternal optimist. I'm a believer in people, and in the believer in the. I don't believe people want to be seen as stupid or want to hurt other people. So if given the opportunity to make that right, I believe he might do that.
Okay.
Maybe he needs a safe space or to make sure that I don't punch him in the face when he says something, because I'm very capable of doing that now. The tables have turned. He used to be big and scary and 300 pounds and call me a fat little shit and could like whip the fuck out of me and like make me not come back towards him. Now, nothing he can do to me physically or emotionally or linguistically that I can't get around or over on him, and I think he knows that.
Can I bring up a point that I had forgotten? I think it was last week you asked me, why am I talking about my father and what does the fact that he was in law enforcement have anything to do with this? And the story I just told you with regard to Brad, that's what my father has to do with this. I told you he abused his authority as a police officer. as a police chief, and he did so in order to create havoc in other people's lives. He was obtaining information that he had no need, no professional need to be in possession of. And he would take that information and use it against someone who he has an issue with. My father never stopped that, John. The last time I saw my father was when he entered court to support my husband, my former husband.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that when Holly's here. We'll talk about that when Holly's here.
Okay.
But that weird relationship with my family didn't end until after Tony died. My father was a cop, and he abused his position to obtain information about all of us to keep in his back pocket. From his favorite granddaughter, Katie, to you, to me, to everyone, Poppy thought was an adversary. So they all act as if I don't know who my father was. I know he did this.
Okay.
You know, he had a file, whether it was a physical file or a file in his head. He operated like J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah, you said that before.
He collected data. And he would use that data in order to knock you down a peg or 10. And he did it all the way up until the end. You know?
That's a sad life.
It is a sad life. But I guarantee you my father's not the only police officer who abuses his position.
We're okay. You're probably right about that. I also, there's like, if we had 10 cops here, 8 or 9 of them are not like your dad. So at least that's my estimation, I believe.
See, my opinion is different, where the pyramid is upside down.
You would have to show me big evidence for me to be like, okay, I get and see it. So I
all of
understand.
My evidence is anecdotal.
Okay, well, cool. Then we don't need to spitball. You believe what you believe, and I believe what I believe, and cool. So all that aside, the physical manifestation of all of this, for you, like crazy-making behavior, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Absolutely.
Never feeling clear-headed, not really being able to understand us, not really being able to understand yourself, and then being lied to from all these angles, what's actually real. What do we settle on? No wonder we couldn't like turn off and let our nervous system relax. We've always been on guard because we've always been being watched.
There was a long time, John, where I did feel insane. And I mean that sincerely. I didn't know what was real.
When? When was that period?
That period was probably from 5 years after the divorce, when life should have been settling down, until after Tony died. I felt insane.
Are you still dealing with any physical manifestations of the pain from feeling insane? Does that still come out at all somehow?
You know what? I don't believe it does. I've done a lot of reflecting on myself and why I was reactive. And I was.
Why were you reactive?
I was hurt.
Hurt from just your dad and your mom and growing up, all of that, and then Brad and all right. Do you believe that hurt is something that can heal, or something that you can manage?
I think it has tremendously healed.
Okay.
In the last probably 6 years, and that's because logic. Checklists. I know it sounds ridiculous, but to me it works.
I think whatever works works.
And
so
what I mean
ridiculous.
by works is, I'm not saying I'm hiding any emotions, that I'm pretending that the emotions aren't there, and I'm just going to act as if nothing's wrong, right?
Here's a question. Would you be able to talk about any of these things in front of anybody else other than me and Holly?
Oh, yeah, I think it'd be a lot easier to talk in front of anyone but my family.
Okay. That tells me then, because you weren't for a while. You didn't want to talk about any of that.
No, I don't want to think about it much. Let's talk about it.
All right. That's interesting. Yeah.
Don't you think it's easier to talk about these things with someone who doesn't have any emotional tie to what's going on?
Yeah. That's where, like, for us, at least having the therapist sometimes takes the emotion out of, or the sting out of it long enough for us to get to the logic. You know, I think our brain, because most people don't realize, like, your brain is like, we'll say 7/8 emotion and 1/8 logic. Like, that's how it's designed. Your prefrontal cortex right up here, the last developed part, that's where logic is, but it's not a big part of your brain. The biggest parts of our brain are designed to hold memories and design. It's like flight or flight systems, the lizard brain, if you will. And so I believe, and hopefully we're getting to the point as a whole society that we're seeing, like, in order for us to logically think about things, you have to give the emotional brain a space. It has to be safe or not, like, crazy, in order to access the best logic, right? So in order to have the clarity to think properly and to not react, you kind of have to learn how to reverse engineer what's happening inside of your brain when you're reacting. And you can only do that with, sometimes, I believe, with guidance. It's like me as a strength coach here. It could be like a brain coach, you know, like
Define
somebody.
guidance.
Well, you like having conversations to bounce things off of somebody, and then usually that allows you to reconcile the thought inside your head, right? That having somebody else here, so that when we're speaking and bouncing off somebody else, they can help us reconcile the thought, so that we don't get overly emotional or stuck in the emotion, but then we can access the logic about it. That's what I mean.
I wonder, should we watch these videos back together?
Most likely at some point.
Okay. I think that'd be interesting.
Or maybe more the react style, i.e. we watch
react
it
to
live
ourselves?
and watch it real time where we react.
That might not be a bad idea.
To just watch it alone in a room with no guidance, like the guidance would be the cameras and us watching it, and then
I think that's a really good idea.
like what we're thinking about real time. Yeah, maybe. You know, it'd be like somebody else watching our video and reacting to it and be like, man, look at that John guy. He is clearly reactive here. And look at the pattern that he goes into when his mom says this. And, you know.
People, not only us can learn, but other people can learn.
Well, I'm learning that.
Did you expect that?
By
going
starting
into
to
this?
share more about my story, by telling the people here who, I think when I started my business and I started working with people who wanted to get in shape, and then eventually I started to find a core group of them that were like John's people, I started opening up more about, well, you hang around people more often, usually the conversation, like, it's not just superficial. So my clients started, oh, why did you start this business? Why did you get into this? And I told them the truth. Mm-hmm. And then they would tell me, we had no idea. We just thought you were like this like superhero who had no problems or emotions. We didn't realize you went through all this stuff. Damn, wow. That makes me like not feel alone with my stuff. And then they would start telling me stuff, but their results in the gym got better, like exponentially.
Just by talking?
Yes. I've been fascinated with that ever since. Like for the last 5 or 6 years, since I've really started to kind of peel back the layer and just share why I actually started this business, the reason behind it. And it's not just because I think everybody should be buff and have fucking muscles. I believe everybody should have personal responsibility and take care of themselves in some fashion. Not always strength training. However, when they started asking me why, I had to start thinking about, why did I actually do this? And it was like to build a place for me to rebuild myself. I had to process all of those emotions after Tony and Jimmy. I had to rebuild the crazy making brain I had. I removed myself big time from society. Remember, for like 2 years, I didn't date anybody. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. It was get up in the morning, go to the gym for 2 or 3 hours, work out with those people, go to work, come home, get on the internet, study, learn about the body, whatever. I did that year after year after year, right in those spaces before I moved out, right after Tony. That was my reconciling of things, that you kind of stepped back to make sure that you were, am I crazy? Is this me? I did that after Tony and building this business, and then every day in this business. And now I have a business that I have all kinds of different kinds of people, older, younger, more academic, more artistic. And the common thread is like they all know and believe that working on their body is important. They just didn't know why they should do it or where they could do it. That wasn't like a normal place. Like the places that are like the gym, the bros, to just sweat and do stuff. And so my place stands out because, yes, I care about being physically strong. It actually, that's what gives me my freedom. Like I can go help you pick up a couch at your house if you needed assistance. And I can go get on the floor and crawl with Michaelin and Marshall and run circles around those little turds until they drop because I'm physically fit and able. And then I can think and do my work and be present with people. And so that's like what I've gotten out of it and why it's important. But I don't like want to push it on people or tell them they should do it. The idea is like I share why I did it. And it draws people in and closer. And then they're like, yeah, we understand why we should do it more now too. Which is fucking amazing to me. So I have a bunch of people who, Mom, they're in their 40s learning how to exercise. You grew up in an era that didn't, one, for women, but two, for exercise. You were just, don't do that. It's not for you, or even it wasn't
even an option.
It wasn't even an option. So now in the here and the now, I'm having people who have never done that. That shit is scary to learn. We're sitting here learning new stuff as adults.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They're learning how to use their bodies as adults. So then they're already like in their heads about like, I feel stupid. How did I let myself get this far? And then they actually have to do the work and show up. And oh man, that's hard. I wanted to make it as easy as possible to do hard work. And I found the way to do that was to share my truth.
When do you think that kind of work should start in someone's life?
When they're ready. What kind of work? Do you mean?
Physical.
Yeah.
I mean, should it begin in their youth?
That's most likely if you get them younger and you show them the model of it, then you don't have to as an adult. Yeah.
If you were
usually
the president of everything.
Okay.
What would your schooling look like for children?
Let's say I was like the commander of the universe.
Yes. Or He-Man of the universe.
I would incentivize people through insurance. I'm learning that might be the model. I.e., if you can do 10 push-ups and a pull-up and 10 bodyweight squats, you get 30% off your insurance or some shit.
But my question is,
yeah,
how do we teach our children from the beginning to incorporate that physical activity every day? We don't sit them in a classroom and say, stop eating, you're getting too porky, right? Go out and run around the gym 20 times or whatever.
If their parents do it, they would.
But my question is, we have to get their parents to do it. Where do we start? Is it in elementary school? Do we take elementary school and say, half the day is book learning and knowledge, half the day is learning about how to be a human being, how to use your body to be healthy, how to express yourself in a healthy way, instead of punching Johnny in the face?
Well, it looks like the health part of it is getting left to parents. It seems like schools want to teach math and science and not anything else other than that.
Do you think they should be providing instruction for how to be human?
I can't say I think the schools should be. I think we as a society need to build that into the fabric of our lives.
How do we do that?
We have the same way we built school into it and all the other things, like one brick at a time. So right now we have a bunch of people that are older that don't know how to exercise. You know, the best we can do with them is like make it simple and accessible for where they're at now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's what I'm attempting to do with this kind of place.
Okay.
Is literally make hard work easier. This is not doing heavy squats and fucking, you know, your presses and things like I don't even like doing it. I like how I feel after I'm done. I like knowing that I could go to your house right now and pick up your couch if you needed me to. I like knowing that I could sling Marshall and Macklin over my shoulder and run around with them.
Macklin weighs 78 pounds.
I like knowing that I could go right over to GA over there and go sprint with my body and use it in all the ways that a human body is designed to move. That feels like freedom to me.
Okay.
So that's why that's so important and why I do that. And I want to like be a model for that. Mm-hmm. And then like as the model doing it myself, write down the things. Here's what I did. Is there anything on this list you don't want to do or you can't do? Let's get rid of that. What are you willing to do? And then, is there anything else that I haven't mentioned that you'd be interested in? Let's figure out how to get there. It's having conversations like this with people to help them understand that why this is important, or their parents are going to start falling apart and then they're going to realize I should have been doing this and do it all along. But to your question, the people that are older, they just got to get on with it and we got to figure out a way to make it easier for them. The people that are not here yet or brand new or coming soon, let's hope that their environment supports healthy physical activity. And if not, let's teach them why that's important and how to do that. So it's something that I believe society has to build.
Doesn't that sound monumental?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking worldwide, not just the United States.
Oh,
where do we start with physical fitness for our kids? We really should start from day one.
Do you ever look at some of the old books from the 60s and 70s and
Yes.
see some of the standards that, like, you guys had it. We lost it. Like, some of those kids, we'll say from the 30s, 40s, 50s that were, like, getting war ready, they were badass kids in high school, like, making them do pull-ups and monkey bars. And,
Yeah, we
like,
could do that.
I've seen some videos start to crop up on social media of what, like, a phys ed class looked like in 12th grade, and it is not like it does now.
What's it like now? I don't.
So now it's, you know what? I don't really know what it's like right now because I'm 20 years removed from it.
Right.
I believe, as I'm coming to understand, it is not necessarily requiring kids to actually be physical versus this is just phys ed class. But if you don't want to, like, do jumping jacks, you know, maybe go sit in the corner and read your book.
Are you kidding?
Because it gives some kids anxiety to be seen doing something physical in front of other kids, which is probably true. I can't, like, argue with the kid, like, but then, like, this kid is now 15 and getting anxiety working out because they weren't showing it like 3 when it would have been really easy to just do it yourself and have them just do it and follow and then be like, yeah, this is what we do. It's harder now when you're older to do it.
John, I wanted to die every time I had to run my porky little ass around the football field. Had to do a mile. Remember the presidential?
Yes.
Whatever the hell that was. I don't remember what it was called.
I was good for a lap, and then I was.
We had to do a mile.
Yeah, we did
and then
too.
You had to do your
sit-ups
sprints and you had to do, and you had to make a minimum.
Sit and reach.
For your partial federal funds.
Yes.
So
yes.
yeah, we were outside. Were you outside?
We
in all weather?
Mostly all weather. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember we had to be outside in all weather for playground.
When
Not
it was
just us, our
raining or
teachers.
when it was a light snow, we'd be at I remember going to the bus stop. Kids are getting picked up at their doors now.
Oh no!
Look,
we walked to school.
I see some evolutions. Like, there's also a kid walking down the side street that doesn't have a sidewalk that has the opportunity to get hit by a car. Yeah, like, let's pick up that kid.
Right.
Let's figure that out. Man, I don't know if it's that we got lucky, but, you know, when we were kids, you could say more to us like, Get out of the house, go out, go do something.
Oh,
and we
yeah.
could be out most of the day and come back and you'd be okay with that and we'd be safe and come home and no issues. I don't know if this is that world anymore, you know?
It's not. We know it's not.
So
Let's not pretend.
So that's different, you know?
So we have to find an updated way.
Mm-hmm.
And distance learning.
It's totally becoming a thing.
Yeah, since...
And I believe it's allowing more things to become more accessible to more people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because some people are like, oh, this is stupid, this is whatever. But maybe that person at home that can't even like get off the fucking couch watching this video is like, yo, like...
That's me.
And they take a step towards something the next day. Awesome. Like, but we are able to go there where they're at. So for physical fitness, we have to meet people where they're at. Even me as a coach in here, they're not me. I cannot expect them to be me or to want to do things like
you
me.
Can't.
They're already busy in their lives. They already are stressed out. They already have kids or all their responsibilities. And then they're trying to add more stress in, because that's what physical fitness is. It's controlled stress.
Mm-hmm.
And think about it this way. Why don't most people do physical fitness if we're already all under so much stress? Where are they getting the space to not be stressed?
They're not.
Yeah. So I think that's why I'm so ready to talk about stuff now. This is more my space to be, even though it's stressful sometimes in the moment. I feel a lot better after having these conversations. It's like when I was lifting and then I'd feel better afterwards. I still lift and I still feel better afterwards. And that's on a habit now. Like I don't have to think about working out. If I didn't work out, I would know.
Yeah.
My body would start telling me.
Muscle memory.
More just like the nervous system being like, yo, you're not regulated. So it's become such a habit that my body pokes me and gives me pain if I don't work on it, which is a cool thing that it does.
Work on it. I think that's the theme for today. Work on it. We're not looking for Olympic swimmers. Just one more step today than you took yesterday.
Well, here's a good question. It's like, what do you think is keeping people from working on it? Why are they so inactive, or why are they so scared? Or how is it that we know all of this information about exercise and health and wellness, and yet there's a stat, 84% of the world does not exercise? Think about that. So 16% of 8 billion people have a gym membership or they work out actively, which means 84% of 8 billion people maybe do nothing.
Do you know what people point to as their primary roadblock? Have you ever heard from people?
Well, yeah, there's patterns, usually time. They don't have enough time.
Right. Money.
Money can be an obstacle.
Okay.
And maybe it goes back to like, because most of society has been in survival mode, and now we're working to build a society that can thrive. Who had the time to think about taking care of yourself?
For a long time, you didn't need the time because it was part of your everyday world.
Just survive, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything was physical.
More physical, yeah.
So as machinery has taken over from physical capabilities, and we're sitting, well, that was my generation, we sat.
You guys were
Everything
more
we
the computer stuff, yeah.
It was even more, we didn't even have the computers until I was in my 20s.
I would say it's a man-made problem that like exercise is something humans weren't even intended to do.
Right, because
that is good for us.
Well, but it's because your life was physical.
Right.
You had to go get the firewood. You had to go get the eggs. You had to this. You had to knead the bread.
Yeah.
Everything in life was physical. Remember I told you when my mother, when I was growing up, my mother was the queen of convenience foods?
Yep.
That's why she was the queen of convenience foods.
Because
When
it was
she
hard.
was growing
it was
up,
hard. Right.
she was born in 1929. So she bypassed the crash but she felt the ramifications from it growing up. She was a baby, but they were there. World War II was very different. Even though the war never hit our shores, there was rationing, so you had to do without. My mother was the consummate recycler. Mimi could find 55 uses for that piece of string over there. Seriously. I was always like...
Yeah.
And again, where the hell am I going with this? Oh, what's wrong with me today?
You're tired. Physical manifestation of all the stress we've been going through.
Probably.
It does,
What's that
literally.
telling you about Mimi?
It's trauma brain. Like, your thoughts are not clear.
Everything about her life was physical. So when they made dinner, they had to make the bread, they had to make the pasta, they had to make the gravy. Everything was made at home from scratch. There were products, you could buy products, convenience products, but Nana didn't have the funds to buy the products. We had to do it at home. You know, the little old Italian ladies would get together, they'd buy a hog. In the spring, they'd feed their hog all summer, all autumn, and around Thanksgiving time, now it's time to slay the hog. They would have it, the butcher would come by, they would kill the hog, and all the old ladies, again, they would process all the meat from that hog, and everybody took home their own portions. That's how you got fed.
Yeah.
And in order to eat, again, you had to make everything. It was physical. So my mother was like, what, green beans in a can? Hell yeah, sign me up.
Of course.
Frozen food? Oh my God, you'd have thought it was Christmas all year long. And I used to be like, why the hell is she like this? But now I understand. It's because she grew up having to make everything from scratch, and all of these things were wonderful. So my point here is it's in the understanding why somebody does what they do, where I think we're going to find common ground.
I believe everything comes back to the why.
Yeah.
Why we do it, why it is, why it exists.
Why are we here today?
Physical manifestation of pain.
Are you still happy to be here doing this? Are you getting a lot out of it?
Yes, I am happy to be here doing this. I am. It is important to do for me, and I do. I'm not going to lie. The comments that we get, whether they're left on YouTube or the emails that I get or the text messages or on Facebook, or even just when somebody pulls me aside and has been like, man, you guys are really going after some stuff that is hard for people to talk about.
Us too.
It is hard for us. And it's also like somebody's got to be the first ones. So why not us?
Well, you asked me why I did this. Because I knew we had to talk. Our family. And why I wanted to do the podcast.
You knew for 16 years we had to talk. Why in June did you come to me last year and be like, yo?
I think because I was ready.
But was there like a aha, or was there, it was just...
No, it was a gradual, I don't know if my perception changed or that I just finally got sick of carrying all this around. I got to get rid of it. I think that was my impetus.
As I was ready to start talking about it, like, it'll be 3 years in September, like when the tornado hit here.
Yes.
That was when I had the I am not okay thought. I literally had like a thought like, no, dude, you're not okay. Stop telling everybody at your gym you are. And I actually shared the truth with them. I was ready to shut the gym down when that tornado hit. You remember?
Yes, I was here.
I was ready to move on to the next thing without knowing what it was. Here it is.
Yep.
It manifested. It came. This is the next thing. And I knew then that there was something behind that I was working towards. I want to make music out of all of this. So if there's any composers or producers or anybody in the music world that is listening, let's work together. But I want to make music out of all of this for people. That's the next level. So here's something that actually did help me. I went to a meditative, it's called sound bath meditation. And it was like 20, 30 people in a room. and this woman facilitates, and she has like these big bowls, and she has like a xylophone and these lots of things that make sounds, but all the sounds have a reason for existing. It's like sending vibrations through your body. So all of us are just laying on our mats, we're breathing, and we're taking in these sounds, and these sounds are washing over our bodies. Big tones, small tones, shorter frequencies, longer frequencies. And here's what I can tell you. Going in, it was like a couple days ago I was like on the edge of my seat. Like if you were watching one of the X videos and you can see me on the edge of my seat twitching. When I walked out, I felt lighter. I was lighter, but I was not reactive even. Like I was just calm and clear with Jackie as we were walking home. And then because we had a conversation later that night, and I even like was talking to her about some of the things that were manifesting for me here, and she was actually able to understand me, which means I'm getting more clear.
Okay.
So I know a big part of it is me being clear with the things that I'm saying. But what I'm getting at is so physical stuff helped me process things. Talking about it is helping me process things. That sound washing over me and the vibration is what's helping me kind of like manifest it and push it outside of me now.
You know, it's funny you say that, because I now remembered when I was a kid growing up, going down the shore. Some of my best times were just laying on the beach. The seagulls, the ocean, the wind.
Jackie and I were just in St. Thomas and the Caribbean Ocean. Mom, you know me in the ocean, right? Like the beach is like my nemesis. Mm-hmm. I went in the ocean.
You can see the bottom.
One, I can see the bottom, but two, it's warm, it's nice.
It's beautiful.
And I'm not a fat little kid being made fun of for having fat thighs and, being 200 pounds at 12 years old.
Someday I'll tell you about the time my mother made us bathing suits.
Well,
it wasn't good.
Some other time, yeah.
Yes, it wasn't good.
That's
But the beach is, to me, rejuvenating.
So that is something that I believe. Knowing that is huge.
Yeah.
Applying that even more huge.
It's always been that way for me, though. Like
when was the last time you were at the beach?
2015.
For what?
I went down over the weekend that Tony died. I wanted to be with Tony.
Oh, you went to the Wildwood one time, I think I remember right.
Yeah, I went to Wildwood Crest.
Yep.
I was there for 4 days, I think.
Yeah.
I wanted to be down there with Tony. I wanted to test my memory on things that had happened when I was a kid, because I don't have anyone to bounce it off of. Mm-hmm. So I thought, you know what, let me put myself back in these places physically. Mm-hmm. And we'll get more into that as we go on. But putting myself in the places where a lot of these things happened in my family. That meant I had to get used to walking down the street past my house where I grew up. I avoided that part of town for almost 30 years. So part of what I'm doing is putting myself physically back where these things happened.
Yeah.
And just being there.
But see how you're physically putting yourself back? So physical manifestation, you're now ready to start unwinding and understanding.
And I've been doing that since 2015.
It was painful for a long time.
It was, the first time I did it, it took me 6 months. And I only drove by the way, my house.
Yeah.
I drove past 6 months before I could do it again.
Yeah.
But I knew I had to face all of those things before I could ever talk about these things. I wanted to talk about them.
Yeah.
And every time I thought about it, I'm sitting in my living room crying like an idiot. Because I can't talk about it. How the hell can I talk about it if I can't even get past the tears? This is huge for me.
To be able to sit here and talk about it, it wasn't just working out that got me here. I did a plant medicine trip. I took ayahuasca.
Oh, right.
Some people know what that means, some don't. If you're not sure what that is, just drop a comment below, and I'm happy to explain what ayahuasca is. It's a psychedelic plant medicine. And I also did some psilocybin mushroom trips. Long story short, using medicine to open up pathways in my brain that I didn't know existed in order to see things differently than I thought they were.
Okay.
How about that? That was pretty clear right there. So
my generation had LSD.
Yeah, LSD got shut down by Timothy Leary, and they haven't been studying psychedelics for 50 years because There were some people that went loud and proud, and then the government was like, we can't control this. We don't know what to do with this. Shut it down. Get rid of it. And unfortunately, a lot of people got hurt in that process, i.e. this could have been something that their research now is starting to really show. It's not a panacea and not for everybody. It's something that might be beneficial to you to allow a person to walk through. And really, long-term other technique avoidant depression. So like this is like point Z, like one of the last things you do, not the first, I believe. So, and medicine allowed me to access the talk because I think it allowed me to feel something.
Okay.
I think when I told you the first trip that I took, when I did the ayahuasca, I literally sat there and laughed for 4 hours. Like my visual is just looking up at this tree while I was on the ground rolling around. Like, I don't know, I must have looked like a lunatic, but I didn't care. All I could remember feeling was like good and funny and happy, and like I got to just laugh again. And I believe it was kind of like this is what it feels like to be a little kid. Okay. Start here. And so I've been working back towards that feeling, and
no, I don't know, actually.
Okay, actually. But sorry, then...
I don't know what being a little kid feels like.
I don't really either. I'm just rediscovering it. So apparently you laugh a lot, and sometimes you poop your pants, and sometimes...
you want your mommy.
You want your mom. Yeah.
You do. Everybody wants their mom sometimes, don't they?
That's the safe space.
But not everybody has a mom.
Correct. No, everybody does not.
Okay, we'll be the moms.
And we can be, or
I'll be the mom.
A part of their environment that allows them to feel like they have somebody who's mom-like. For sure.
I think that's important.
Agreed. I think in a lot of ways I'm like the strength dad here. Like come on, let's get our muscles. Let's get after it. Let's, make sure we're doing our squats. Here's why they're important.
So you're kettlebell daddy.
Strength dad, not just kettlebells.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else you want to get out today? Oh, I have a question. Here's one for you.
Okay.
Let's end it this way. I think this is pretty cool. Let's leave a question. So anybody who might watch this, leave them a question that you think they should answer.
In terms of what we talked about today?
Yeah, in terms of what we talked about today. Ask
well,
what question.
The obvious question is, do you feel as if you're having physical effects of the stress that you've been under, if you've been dealing with a situation like this? Or are you like me when I thought, I dodged the bullet, that I'm not having any physical manifestations of the stress that I've been under until the stress ended for a period of time, and all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
So it's time now to think about it and do something about it. We all have to deal with these issues in our lives, and when we don't, we have this. It's bad in the moment, let's be honest. And let's address the fact that the past few videos have been very, very difficult. In the moment, I do feel like I just want to get up and leave sometimes.
I understand. I do too.
And we're not doing that. That's huge for our family. If we're able to do this, we want to help you get to the point where you excavate everything that's holding you back, right? And we have to do it as a family. That's part of the problem here. I think we all try to do individual work.
Or maybe that's why families get sidetracked, is people are working as a collection of individuals and not a family unit.
And if we don't deal with the issues as a family unit, because everything affected all of us, whether we agree with that or not, if we don't deal with it that way, we're just going to have another generation doing the same things.
Yeah.
And I've seen it from my sister's children. They're very much like my sisters in the way we were raised. And it's scary.
Well, on that note, everybody, we have a directive today. If you heard that question and you would like to entertain that, please leave a comment below or send an email to us. But let's take action today. I believe that is what needs to happen out of today. We sit here, we talk, we think a lot, we're pondering, we are speculating. Our action is sitting here today and taking the gloves off for you. What is your action going to be after you have watched this video? Please respond to that, and we'll talk soon. Be well. Thank you for listening to our show. If you're interested in how we've gotten this far, I've put together a small guide that has a 3-step process at no cost. You can get that at www.iamnotok.com/truth. www.iamnotok.com/truth. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you on the inside. Be well.